Welcome back everyone, it's me Sean. Today we're going to learn about the basic data types in Python. So let's start. Here's what you will learn. So now let's create a new file. Now I'm going to create a variable x, which is equal to 10. Here, x is an integer because it contains a whole number. Integers can be negative numbers, 0 or positive numbers. The other numbers which do not have decimal places. Now we're going to create a float y, which is equal to 1.2. Floats are the numbers which have decimal places. They can be negative, positive or 0. Now I'm going to create a boolean, c. Booleans can only contain true or false. Now I'm going to create a new variable, string. This variable contains a string which says hello. In Python, string is the data type that can contain letters, words or sentences. To create a string, you just have to use quotes. You can put all the data you want inside the quotes. It can be single quote, double quote or 3 double quotes together. In our case, I'm just gonna use double quotes for now. Now I'm gonna save the file. I'm gonna name the file datatype.py. You can name it whatever you want. Now let's print all these variables one by one. I'm also gonna introduce you to one of Python's inbuilt methods, which is the type method. The type method just returns the type of the data you pass into it. Let's see an example. For example, I type print and inside the parentheses type and inside the parentheses x, this is going to return the type of x. So let's run the code, and as you can see, it has returned int. Now let's print all these variables one by one along with their type. Now let's save the file and run the program. As you can see here guys, we have returned all of the variables type and their values. Now x type is int, then 10, y type is float and 1.2, then z type is boolean and the value is true, and string type is str, which is string, and the value is hello. Great. Now we are going to learn about explicit type conversions. This means that you specify the type that you want to convert a variable to. The first method that you're going to learn how to use is the int method. The int method converts any other data type to an integer. Now I'm going to show you an example here. For now, just copy what I'm typing. I will explain the code later. Here in the first line, we are creating a float which is x, which has the value 20.1. Then we are printing x out along with its type. Then we are converting x to an integer using the int method. We pass x into the int method. Then we store it inside the same variable x. Then we print out x along with its type again. Let's run the program to see the output. As you can see, we first printed 20.1 and the type as float. Then we've printed x again when it was an integer, that is 20. So now I'm going to show another example where I convert a string to an integer. Here I'm going to create a new string which has 20. You can notice the quotes here. This shows that it's a string. You can also verify it by running the program. You can see that we have first printed the type as string. We converted to an integer and printed the type again. Let's change the value of x from 20 to true, which is a boolean. Let's run the program and see what happens. You can see that it has returned a value of 1 after it got converted. Now let's try false. Let's run the program, and as you can see, it has returned a value of 0. Therefore true means 1 and 0 means false. Now let's learn about the float method. The float method, just like the int method, converts any data type to a float. Now let's change the value of x to 20, which is an integer. Then change the name of the method from int to float. Let's run the program, and as you can see, we have returned 20, then the type which is int, then 20.0 which is a float, then float. If you remembered, float are the numbers which have decimal points, as seen here, which is 20.0. Now let's attempt to convert a string to a float. So I change the value of x to 30 now, which is a string. We can run the program, and as we can see, it has first printed 30, which is a string, then 30.0, which is a float. We can also add decimal places inside the string itself. Let's run the program, and as you can see, it has converted to a float, 30.256. Now let's try to convert a boolean to a float. So I've changed the value of x to true now. Let's run the program, and we can see it has returned 1.0. Last time when we used the int function, it had returned an integer, which is 1. Now it has returned a float, 1.0. Now let's try changing the value from true to false now. Let's run the program, and you can see it had returned 0.0. Great, it all works. Now let's use the str method. The str method converts any other data type to a string. So let's try to pass in the value of false. Now if we run the file, we can see that it had converted false to a string which has false, false. Let's try to convert an integer which is 21. As you can see here, it has converted the integer 21 to a string 21. Now let's try to convert a float, which is 21.1542. And as you can see, it has converted that too. Now let's try to use the bool method. The bool method, just like every other method we have seen, converts any other data type to a boolean. So let's pass in the value of 10. Let's run the program, and we can see we have got the value of true here. Let's try other values too. Like let's change the value of x from 10 to 3. Let's run the program, and we can see we have got 3. When we converted false to integer, we know that the value was 0. So let's try 0. As you can see, we have finally printed false. Let's try negative numbers now, like -2. Let's run the program, and we can see we get true. Therefore, only passing 0 makes it false. Now let's try passing in floats, for example 2.89. Let's run the program, and we get true. Let's try another float, 0.0. This time, if we run the program, we get false. Now let's try changing the value of x to a string value like something. Let's run the file and see what happens. Here in the output, we can see that it had returned the value of true. Now let's try passing an empty string. Let's run the program, and as you can see, it has returned false. Well, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. I will see you in the next video.